And I think that's going to allow us to put crypto into products where, the average person who wouldn't consider themselves a crypto person can use it. Like, I don't know what technology Netflix uses. I put on Netflix, movies come to my house. It's awesome. I don't think about it. Like, we are going to see that happen over the next 3 to 5 years in crypto. And it's going to mean that hundreds or maybe billions of more people adopt crypto than ever even experienced it. And I think, of course, that like Gen Z, a digitally native generation, is going to be really into Bitcoin and understand it in an intuitive way that even people of our generation didn't get.
Welcome to the Culture in Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Mark Anthony Hill II, founder and partner here at London York. We're a private family fund. Today's guest is Alex Rawitz, the CEO of DIMO. Prior to founding DIMO, Alex spent time at Chainalysis and Servato. Alex is also a graduate of Cornell University, and today we'll talk to Alex, learn more about him, DIMO, and its impact in the real world. So without further ado, Alex, how's it going, man?
It's going great, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So I know you've been really busy. It took a little bit of time to get everything coordinated with the interview. So I know you guys are building a lot. So let's jump to it. Before we dive into DIMO specifically, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and where you first learned about Bitcoin and crypto?
Definitely. I actually learned about Bitcoin back in college in probably 2012 or so. I had a few friends that had explored the edges of the known internet, dabbled in Bitcoin a little bit.
Right.
And as I learned about Bitcoin, I thought it was interesting. I didn't like jump in myself. It wasn't until a few years later when I was living with a roommate after college where he told me, I'm now trading Bitcoin, kind of tracking the prices. I thought about it a second time. And then it was finally in 2017 when one of my co-founders, sent me the Ethereum white paper. And I thought, okay, now there's more cryptocurrencies. Like, what's going on here? There's probably something to pay attention to. I had to hear about it a couple of times. And I got hooked immediately. So that's at the time I was working at an IoT company. We were building hardware and software for the telecom industry. And the idea of smart contracts and IoT devices just made immediate sense to me. You could have machines paying each other. You could have verified proofs that certain activities had occurred without having humans in the loop. It just clicked. And I went down the rabbit hole. And a year later, I knew I wanted to be in the industry, got myself a job at Chainalysis where I had a ton of exposure to really, really interesting projects. And then in 2021, became one of the co-founders of DIMO. And today I'm actually the COO of the Labs Corp for the project and have been building in crypto for the last 5 or 6 years.
Wow, that's a lot. If you see me writing something down, guys, during this, I'm actually taking notes because I'm learning just like you guys are. Full disclosure, we are an investor in DIMO. Like I was telling Alex prior to the podcast, I had written a research report on them about a year before the token drop. So it's interesting to hear the background. So Chainalysis kind of got you in. Is that right?
Certainly into the industry. I think that there's a big difference between somebody who's kind of, you're outside and you can be learning and coming to understand the industry in tremendous ways as a trader, as a personal investor. But once you start, getting in and actually building, helping work on products that are moving the industry forward, seeing where the puck is going in that regard from inside the industry, I knew that crypto was going to be a place that I wanted to keep working.
Got you. And when speaking on that, where you say, skating to where the puck's going, is that what led you to found DIMO? Did you see like there's a huge use case for real world uses for crypto in vehicle data?
For years we saw that the industry was mainly focused on financial aspects, and one of the aha moments for me was Helium, the project. And I think a lot of people are now kind of familiar with Helium, building this decentralized wireless network, and there's acronyms galore for Helium and the Dippen projects today. But at the time, I would talk to people in really diehard crypto people and tell them about this cool IoT network using wireless or using a blockchain to create a wireless network. And they would say, what are you talking about? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. We're going to stick to DeFi. And I just felt like what Helium and then a handful of other projects were able to do pointed in the direction that like it's time to bring more industries into the blockchain world. And we can take the principles of decentralization, openness, transparency, we can take those principles and bring them into other industries.
Absolutely. And that was something I found special about Demo. Actually, it allows users to own their data, first of all, which I think is extremely important, and allows them
Yeah.
to earn money from sharing their data. It's one of the reasons that I invested. And can you tell us a little more about that and the power that that unlocks for users and developers building on top of Demo?
Yeah, the auto industry's a industry that is trillions and trillions of dollars in value when you add up things like vehicle sales, financing, insurance, all the other facets of the industry. And it's pretty crazy that there isn't like a standard way that all of the companies involved in that can share data. They all might collect data in their own ways, but there's no easy way. There's no Ethereum, but for cars where everyone has the same open ledger to go and compare information about a vehicle or about movements. So when users own their own data, they're able to not just store it and use it on their own, understand what's going on with their car, but you're able to actually either sell that directly to companies that might want to buy that data to produce insights, or you'll be able to share it with companies that maybe can offer you a service or offer you a discount for the fact that you're sharing your data. So one example that we're launching very soon is a company that's going to ingest some data from Dimo drivers in order to provide them a fast and quick quote and a cheaper quote from a vehicle services contract. So users are able to benefit not just from owning this data, which itself is an asset, but they can actually now have experiences. It's sort of like showing up to the doctor with your records on your phone linked to an account that you could share really easily. It'd be nice to skip a lot of steps that you could do that you have to go through. We can do the same thing for the auto industry and unlock trillions of dollars of value across all of these different companies.
Gotcha. Okay. And how have those conversations been going so far? Because it seems like you're starting to get some real buy-in from
Yeah.
some of the major auto manufacturers. How are those conversations going?
Well, auto manufacturers are moving the slowest, but we have had conversations with a number of them, and our approach from the beginning has always been we're going to build in a way where we don't need their permission. We can build around them. We can build tools and systems for people and for other developers that don't require their opt-in. But since we launched the developer platform and are putting up more tools for that in the last couple of months, we've had a ton of interest from developers across the auto industry. These are roadside assistance companies, dealerships, huge dealerships, not just a local one. Insights and analytics companies that are trying to build on the data. They're finding that we have a few things. One, we have a diversity of vehicles that you can't find from other data platforms. Two, we have users who have opted in to share their data directly. So there's no place you can really go to get first party data. And three, we have users that have historical data. So we have some people who've been connected now for 2 years. And that creates a natural advantage for us compared to, say, Ford trying to sell their own data. We have this repository that a user can go and share, and the users can permission those developers to access that data.
Perfect. I think that's just going to be really powerful. I think we're not even scratching the surface on where
Absolutely
that's
not.
going to go. There is, yeah, and there's one thing I did want to talk about now that we are talking about the user side of it. Can we dive into the Demo Awards for a second?
Yeah.
Because I've heard you explain it in your interviews where it's like airline miles for your car, which I thought was really smart.
Yep.
It makes a lot of sense. Can you explain how the rewards work
Yeah.
and, some possible benefits that even myself or anyone who may have one or two of the other hardware products?
Yeah. So we're not completely finished building out this vision yet. And some of it is coming later this year, but the goal, as you put it in the
Yep.
exact words that we use, the goal is to make the Demo reward token feel like an airline reward point for your car. What do we mean by that? Well, we get users who sign up for Demo today and get connected, earn a certain amount of tokens every single week just for being connected. This is just like any sign up bonus that you get through other loyalty programs, credit card programs. Tweaked slightly because you just have to keep your car connected. But it's a pretty similar, think of it as a sign up bonus. When you use the services in our marketplace, most of them hand out additional bonuses as well. So if we go back to the example of buying a car warranty through our partner, they will actually provide you $125 back in Demo tokens for purchasing through them. In that sense, it's just like any other purchase you make when you're, shopping for a flight or something like that. You get some rewards back. Now we have to close the loop, which is still not yet live in the app, but in the not too distant future, a user or a driver will be able to take some of those reward points, and maybe you'll pay for your insurance or pay for your next, maintenance and servicing with those Demo rewards points. We're going to make it super seamless. Developers won't have to worry about accepting Demo tokens necessarily. It can be converted to dollars really easily through services that exist. And then what we've created is a system there where the token is flowing freely throughout the marketplace. And it's really, really easy for not just crypto people to understand how is this token working in the real world, but for the average driver out in the world to go and say, hey, that makes sense to me. I should get rewards every time I spend a little money on my car, and eventually be able to do something with those rewards.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because people are using it. I know there's some real growth in the adoption
Yeah.
of both of the hardware devices. So I'm excited to see how that works as the user network grows and the kind of rewards that you guys can kind of implement. I'm just excited to see how that plays out. Um, Speaking of the hardware, so
Yeah.
when that was one of the things that I really thought about when I was like, okay, what makes Demo so special? And I was like, Mark, it's simple. They make hardware. Making hardware is hard,
Yep.
right?
Very hard.
So if they can pull that off, there's very few companies, especially in the crypto space, that even would attempt to make hardware. So just much respect out the gate for just making the attempt and actually making a product that actually works.
Thank you.
Because you can go through YouTube, there's people actually using it and it
Yep.
works. So speaking to the hardware side, there's two products that you guys have. So you have the
Yep.
Demo, is that macaron? Is that
Yep.
the way to pronounce that? And the AutoPie. So how was there's a couple questions kind of in here. I'll unpack it this way. So how was the process first of developing the hardware so far
Yeah.
been? And then are there any plans to roll out different hardware outside of like a OB2 reader plugin?
Yeah. Hardware's hard, as you said. We started with the Demo AutoPie, and we started there because the manufacturer of the AutoPie devices, a company called AutoPie, had spent a lot of time thinking similarly about our approach to building an open ecosystem. And so their device was quite open. We could help develop custom software for it. As far as a place for developers to start, it was a pretty good one. And it has its own drawbacks. It's a fairly large device. It's pretty expensive, but in the grand scheme of things, it was the perfect starting point because we could put all of our own proprietary code on the device. What we realized, what we learned, of course, is that people want a cheaper device. They want a smaller device, and so we went the route of working with another manufacturer to create the Demo Macron. Now, our approach has always been, we believe anyone should be able to build a DIMO compatible hardware device. So we actually have an open hardware ecosystem. Other hardware manufacturers can apply to bring their devices to the DIMO network. And today, that is mostly other OBD2 devices. So there are a few more manufacturers that will be coming online soon to sell their devices. But in the future, it really could pertain to any device that is collecting and helping users access relevant data about their driving and mobility. So that could extend to dash cams. It could extend to other types of sensors that are relevant to the automotive and mobility experience. It could eventually extend to other kinds of vehicles entirely. And in fact, our approach is, in the long run, you probably don't even need special hardware. You can treat the car itself as the hardware device.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, Alex, is that kind of what's already in place, like the Tesla,
Yeah,
where you
exactly.
don't need hardware? It's kind of so strong
Yep.
that, you can tap in. Um,
Yeah, API.
Now this wasn't, go ahead.
Yeah, the Tesla API is obviously far and away the most robust in the industry, and we expect other car manufacturers to move in that direction. So in the long run, we have what's called a synthetic device for Tesla. It's a kind of a virtual device. That'll be the case for pretty much all manufacturers.
Oh, that's going to be a really good rollout. I'm excited, like I said, just to see how that plays out when all vehicles have that same type of access level that you get with a Tesla.
Yep.
Um, that opens up a lot. Um, one, two other questions that kind of tie into the hardware side.
Yeah.
One question, and this is something I thought about a lot of people have online, if you just kind of look, that people have when they do purchase a demo or before they purchase one. What they usually ask is, well, who am I selling my data to? Right? And then the second one and the follow up is what data is actually being sold. And
Yeah.
that's kind of maybe more so a privacy thing you probably touch on.
Right. There's a couple of really pretty straightforward answers to that. So the first thing is that just connecting to Dimo only means that we would sell the aggregated and anonymized data, meaning there's nothing about the data that is sold out of the gate that can be traced back to you as an individual driver or your individual vehicle. There's no VIN number, nothing. It's all aggregated, anonymized, and there's use cases for that. Some are live, like one of our customers buys cell coverage data in order to build a cell coverage map. There's folks that are interested in buying data to produce maps of where roads need to be fixed, things like that. It's a real broad swath of customers. As a user, you have full control over anything beyond that point that gets sold. So if Dimo is going to bring on a new customer that wants to purchase, let's say, your vehicle's health and history tied actually back to your vehicle, not in a big aggregated pool, you as a user would actually have to approve that. You'd have to say, hey, here's the amount of data that I want to sell. I want to sell my VIN and health condition. I'm actually going to contribute that to a separate pool where that can become authorized. We believe, of course, that user privacy is one of the most important things to uphold. And so we've structured everything in a way where users are opting in to basically each incremental piece of data that they want to sell beyond just the aggregated and anonymized data.
Got you. So as a user, I have the ability to authorize any specific data set that I want to sell. So if an insurance company, hey, I want to track your driving history, so I could say, hey, is Progressive, Allstate,
Yeah.
Farmers cheaper? But I would allow that to opt in to happen.
That's
Okay.
going to be the way that it works in 99% of cases. It's just like the thing is most of these companies really only care about getting your data when they think they can sell you something. Like they're not interested in just tracking you for the sake of it. They're interested in, so like if you're someone who's shopping for car insurance, then they're really interested in your data. And the way I think the world would work, at least what I want, the way I think things should go is I should be able to give my data as much as I feel comfortable. and not everyone necessarily feels this way, and you
Yeah.
don't have to, but I should be able to give my data to all of those insurance companies and see who gives me the best price. Um, it's silly that I have to do the progressive snapshot to get my driving data, and then I can't take that driving data and say, hey, Geico, what do you think?
I agree 100%. I feel everything should be an open market like that. Um, and it would be a lot better if they really had to truly compete for the business. I think it'd be better prices for
Yeah.
end users and customers. I know I would.
Hmm.
I'm gonna do it the first second I get, hey, run the data, give me the best deal,
Yep.
fight for the business.
Yep.
So yeah, so I agree wholeheartedly with that. Um, and that kind of ties into where I wanted to go next.
Yeah.
So let's talk about partnerships and integration. So Dimo's an open data network. What types of companies have been interested in plugging into Dimo's data network?
Yeah. I'll break it down into three categories roughly. The first are going to be the very conventional vehicle services companies. So these will be insurance companies, financing, maintenance, warranties I've mentioned a few times, the basics, the things that most people are spending a lot of their hard-earned money on for their car every year. The second group are companies building around electric vehicles, whether they're building EV charging applications, site tracking applications, just data platforms for EVs. There's obviously a lot of interest in EVs, as they're an integral part of the future of mobility. The third is where things get really exciting, and these are the people that are building applications that I think are going to be really the most eye-opening and the most interesting for people. If you think about your iPhone, it sort of came and you're like, okay, when the iPhone first came out, you're like, okay, I now have a phone with a touchscreen. And it probably was like maybe you had some notepads and you had a few other apps. And then once you had games and you had this explosion of new kinds of other services, social media, no one could have predicted social media would exist in that way on your phone, prior to millions of phones going out there. And so we have developers who are showing up interested in building games and quests and all kinds of other applications on top of Demo that are really going to, I think, blow people's minds in terms of what could a connected car experience really mean. It doesn't just mean checking your tire pressure or buying insurance. It could mean all kinds of new applications around socializing around your vehicle or completing quests or playing games that we haven't even thought of yet.
Can we dive just for a quick second on that, Alex?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned some things that I just thought were really dope. You mentioned integrating games into it
Yeah.
because one thing I always think about is it's gonna be games and Dippen that bring mass adoption because that's where the real world action is gonna take place, either through games or through stuff people can touch,
Yep.
right, or interact with. Um, so can you dive a little
Yeah.
deeper on some of those applications that are outside of what we would think of like insurance and maintenance? Like what are some of the fun stuff that a regular person might just say, man, what is this? Why this is why I would just try this
Yeah.
Demo thing out.
I'll give you a couple of random examples that people have talked to us about already. So we have a lot of people who want to gamify safer driving that come to us with pitches like that. We've got people who want to build games for, let's say, tourism. So hey, you could build a game, visit all 50 state capitals or visit all these national parks. You could get even more interactive. We've had people suggest building Pokemon Go, but in cars, experiences like that. Where you kind of
That's where I
even,
was.
yeah. So you could even have, people trying to hit checkpoints on a map. I'm not the most creative thinker about these things. I'm sure other people will come up with games that far exceed my own imagination.
Got you. But no, I think that helps give the audience a little taste of
Yeah.
what's scratching, what's underneath the surface out of something that may just seem like a infrastructure only play.
Yep.
I think there's a lot that can be built in the fact that Demo is also not just a protocol that has a direct OBT reader plugin, but it's a platform like the iPhone App Store that other developers can build incredibly cool products on top of. and you guys are the bridge that is bringing all those developers into the space, especially
Exactly.
because it's extremely hard to build for cars in the Philippines. So perfect. So that answered that. And speaking of, well, kind of piggybacking off on that, I wanted to talk up just for a quick second about fleet integration.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about this because I know with the first thing that came into my mind, because me and my brother used to have a small fleet of Turo vehicles.
Yeah.
So we had a couple luxury cars and a couple daily drivers, and we had just got rid of everything in the fleet right when I really first found out about Dimo, and I was like, damn, I wish if we still were in it, I would have put these in the entire fleet. So can you speak to that and tell
Yeah.
me like what's the response been from platforms and Turo and other ride sharing platforms, stuff like that?
We haven't even spoken to Turo directly, but we have a bunch of Turo hosts on the platform using us already. And again, I talked about this with OEMs. That's kind of the way we like it. You sort of build up a bigger and bigger user base before you have to worry about talking to corporate. So we have a ton of Turo hosts. They're using Dimo 4 in the Dimo mobile app for things you might expect, tracking their vehicles, understanding how they're being used, checking maintenance. There are some developers who are building more advanced tools for those folks, geofences, fleet interfaces. I mean, obviously, if you have 100 cars, you probably don't want to look at that in a mobile app. You probably want to have that on a desktop and have a little mini command center. But there's actually some really interesting things once you get to really big scale hosts like rental car operators. Something really interesting that you learn is, those folks are buying and selling chunks of cars every single month. And it's actually a real pain point throughout the industry. It's just painful. It's cumbersome. I mean, most people have probably sold a couple of cars in their life, and they recognize all the paperwork and all the, all of that time spent is time consuming. And then you have to do it for, let's say, a dozen cars every month, or sometimes 100 cars every month. And so we're working on how do we better integrate pieces of the used car industry so that the people who are doing those kinds of scale in vehicle purchases and sales can have a more streamlined process. Eventually, that car that they sell has to go through an auction and be transported and go to a dealer. There's all these entities in the chain. And coming back to the original idea of data sharing, none of those entities have a good way of sharing data today. And that's where we can help improve the industry.
Gotcha. So Demo actually would be playing the role of helping to streamline data along that chain that
Exactly.
happens, that excruciatingly painful chain of buying, selling a vehicle.
Yep.
So this actually makes me ask something. Actually, I remember hearing you talk about on the Hot Spotty podcast,
Yeah.
I believe, with Helium. I think you were talking about the ability to have registration already tied on chain,
Mm-hmm.
and you were talking about Chainlink, and I think you were saying we did that a year ago. Like, can you dive into how any of that's going with speaking with like municipalities? Are they open to chain migration yet?
So we have created the vehicle NFT that is storing data about the car. And yeah, Chainlink had an example, and we were like, we did that a long time ago. In terms of the actual vehicle registration piece, that's not something we're actively working, but there's a couple of companies that are working on that. Cario and Champ Titles are companies that are in the process of creating blockchain based what's called e-titles. So e-titles, of course, it's what you would imagine, it's a digital title. And we look at what those folks are doing and what we're doing as two sides of the same coin, which is if you want to actually, let's say, sell the car or manage the car through its life cycle, you want the digital piece of paper of who owns the car and what are the conditions on that. And then you also want some digital proof of the car itself, what is the condition of the car and things like that. And that's, of course, where Demo comes in. And together, those two things can really represent the vehicle in its entirety. E-title and sort of the digitization of the DMV is moving quite slowly. As you might imagine, these are government agencies, but it is underway in some states, and some states are starting to roll that out with some of these providers.
Yeah, I mean, you never expect a government agency to move fast. That would be a huge shock.
Nope.
But at least that you guys are pushing, knocking on the door and bringing some attention, it's going to do a lot. Um, let's talk chains. So
Mm-hmm.
you guys are on Polygon,
Yeah.
which I think is really cool. I invested in Polygon early, so I like what the chains build, especially as far as tying into real world assets. Can you kind of talk about, how it's been and the support with the Polygon team?
Yeah.
And are there any plans on any other, future collaborative efforts with the Polygon team?
Definitely. It's funny. Usually, when I get the chains question, people are like, "Why aren't you on this chain?" And it's like always some like whatever hot new chain of the month. And it's like we started 3 years ago. Like you don't hop around chains like that.
Yeah,
Anyway, Polygon team's been great. We talk with some folks over there almost every single day. I've been going back and forth with some of the folks, some of the founders of Polygon today. Um, they are leaning in some really awesome ways. I think that we're going to start to see a lot more activity from Polygon in the Dippen space generally. And there's some more cohesion happening now between other projects that are building on Polygon than we've seen in, I think, up to this point. Polygon has a tremendous amount of wallet share. They have a tremendous amount of developer activity. They've got great tech. Like we're excited to
yeah,
continue to collaborate with them on some of the things that we're working on.
cool. Yeah, but it seemed like that was a good base for you guys to start because I think at the time, when you guys launched, I don't even think Dpen was a term
No, it wasn't. Actually,
at the
one of
time.
our investors coined the term Tippen, and then it got taken and I think improved a little bit into Dippen. But yeah, no, it wasn't even a category. And now everything that isn't gaming or DeFi seems to be in the Dippen category.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be the fastest growing sector. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely one that I think is where I think we're going to get the real world use cases
Yep.
first. I mean, we already have people actually
Yeah.
use Dimo.
And
There's
Helium.
other,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, and Helium, which is probably the OG of OGs in the space. Um, I wanted to talk about something because obviously, as an investor, we want to talk about fundraising. So I didn't want to slip this cast in without asking about it. So as of now, you guys raised some funding, um, and I think the number, at least from what I saw, was around 21 million. Is that right?
Yeah, if you include the this is actually a very recent transaction. So we had the Demo Foundation and the protocol had a market maker helping to supply, still does, helping to supply liquidity to exchanges where the Demo token is trading, and they actually exercise an option to purchase more tokens. So now the total is around 26 million in total raised.
Got you. And you guys are still, as far as like market cap, are considered a small company, which I'm just surprised that you guys aren't already at like close to $1 billion valuation, which is great for me because I get to get more and any other smart investors, not financial advice. But are there any plans for future rounds? Because it seems like with the amount that you've raised, it seems like that should be a good runway for a little while now.
I think that, like most projects and most startups, we sort of take it day by day. We want to give ourselves good runway. We want to give ourselves the resources we need to build all of the great things that we need to build and generate the revenue that we need to. So there's always, I think most startups, especially most don't stop after a Series A, but we always we've been big believers, and personally I have a ton of respect for anyone who like bootstraps and can avoid having to raise more. But it's something that we'll just have to evaluate as we, see how the market does, see how product rollouts do. It's just something that we're going to keep looking at.
Absolutely. One thing I did want to commend you guys on, because a lot of people give flack when companies raise. A lot of the degens in the space are like, "Hey,
Sure.
no, you've crossed over to the dark side or something," and I'm just like, "Hey, guys, we got to be honest. you're building a company. It takes money, it takes resources. You need a smart team, and that takes money. So yeah, so you guys have been doing a great thing and building through a bear market, which says a lot because a lot of companies just disappear.
Yep.
You guys have been heads down. Seems like the whole. Go ahead. I'll let you jump in.
The bear market is no joke. We typically well, I'll say, like we've been big believers that what our vision is for an improved automotive and mobility industry is worth doing. Like first and foremost. And it's funny, a lot of people will show up and they'll ask me about token or ROI on devices. And I tell them, look, if you're here to ask about if that's your first question, we're probably not the right place for you to be. Like we have a 20-year vision on changing $1 trillion industry. If you think that's going to happen overnight, then like, sorry, you should go pay attention to some other stuff. And, we're just long-term minded in that sense.
Absolutely. And it's good to hear that from you, what you guys are building. It says a lot, especially in a space where everyone's kind of fly by night.
Yeah.
It just says a lot to what you guys are building. But I think the opportunity is so big. There's no way they don't see you guys in the top 50 or even lower, as far as like market cap's concerned in the future. I did have to ask this question because this is the culture and crypto podcast,
Yeah.
so we definitely need to tie in the culture. So, cars. I know you guys are car enthusiasts, and cars and culture obviously go hand in hand. Are there any plans for Dimo to organize or host events that kind of bring different car cultures or different car enthusiasts together?
Absolutely. We've been going to the Detroit Auto Show now for a couple of years in a row. We're going to start to expand, visiting other auto shows. You've probably heard people at Dimo say stuff like this before, but we're big believers that, the crypto industry expands when crypto goes outside of its own walls. Like we can't hope that everyone comes to our party. We got to go to all the other parties that are out there in the world. And we're not there to show up and explain blockchain to the people at an auto show or the people at a car meetup. We're there to talk about what are the unique things that the new technology enables people to accomplish. And, we have people who are in major Facebook groups, people around cars. We have people who have Instagram profiles for their own cars. Like the car culture runs very, very deep, especially in the US, but also outside the US. And I think that the culture angle is something, going back to what our developers trying to build on Demo. I think the social and the culture angle is going to be a huge aspect of what pushes Demo from, 80,000 cars connected to 80 million.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could definitely see like a car sharing club of Tesla owners or any other car getting together and connecting through Demo. I think that type of experience would really give it that mainstream type of push, which I'm sure we'll see in the near future.
Yep.
For sure. And then there's two. I'm down to my last two questions. So the one where we're at now is just basically just what excites you the most about Demo's future. I know you got a 20-year vision.
Yeah.
But based on that, what it kind of excites you,
I'm definitely excited about putting the pieces of this developer platform together and bringing that to people in the next few months. I think that Demo will help, whether we do it under the Demo brand or whether it is, Demo is the technology is just powering some other brand and company to do this. But I think we're going to be able to move from a world where Carfax, which has a few data points about the car, is sort of the like, is it in good condition answer, to a point where like a Demo report is that answer for people. And that's going to be a big signal the used car market is a $1.5 trillion market, and you have this like pretty flimsy report in the Carfax that is kind of like the best thing you can get in the industry. And we're going to be able to change that pretty dramatically. And I think that once people start realizing the value of Dimo through vehicle transactions, we're going to see a huge sort of unlock in people's understanding of what we're building.
Incredible. Yeah, I'm excited to see that as well. I think you touched on that key point, because all the cars that I've bought, yeah, the Carfax was it, and I'm like, this is no information. If I could get a Dimo report, you know how much better that would be.
Yeah, be a ton
So
better.
trust me, the line's going to be on the door. Oh yeah, absolutely. And the last question, Alex. First of all, thank you for being here. You've been an incredible guest. We're happy to have you on the cast. You're welcome to come back anytime. Anyone from the Dimo team, you're always welcome here. So my last question is, where do you just see crypto and market adoption in general over the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, we just eclipsed the halving.
Yep.
So where do you kind of see things in the next 3 to 5?
I actually think that this is the most excited. Well, first off, let me say thanks for having me on, and we'll have to come back and do an update. But I actually think this is the most exciting moment in crypto in quite a long time. Especially, as somebody who's been in the space and been watching the space for most of its existence. And the thing that I think is changing now is that we're finally seeing new technology around wallets that is going to allow us to fully, as they say, hide the wires. So you'll be able to have somebody sign up, use a crypto blockchain-based application, still have the option for control of their private keys, but never even have to like see a seed phrase or see the words, sign a transaction or handle any of the complexity that trips most people up and sends them away. And I think that's going to allow us to put crypto into products where, the average person who wouldn't consider themselves a crypto person can use it. Like, I don't know what technology Netflix uses. I put on Netflix, movies come to my house. It's awesome. I don't think about it. Like, we are going to see that happen over the next 3 to 5 years in crypto. And it's going to mean that hundreds or maybe billions of more people adopt crypto than ever even experienced it. And I think, of course, that like Gen Z, a digitally native generation, is going to be really into Bitcoin and understand it in an intuitive way that even people of our generation didn't get.
Man, that was the perfect way to end it. Alex, thank you for stopping by today, the Culture and Crypto podcast. We're huge fans of Dimo. Wish you guys nothing but the best of luck.
Mark, thanks for your time.
Appreciate it.